Hey guys, what's going on? I wanted to talk about volunteerism today. It's an interesting concept, honestly, and it's a very big part of libertarian ideals, I guess. Man, it's cold as fuck today. It's horrible. Oh, there's my door. Open off even more. So, volunteerism. What exactly is it? Well, from my understanding, it's the idea that all systems and production can be done voluntarily. No one needs to be forced to do anything through taxes, which I, for the most part, agree with the statement in saying that taxation is theft. Essentially, I don't believe you should have to pay any of your monetary value that you've earned through your own work and production back to a state, which handles that money rather irresponsibly. Now, I think if I were to live in a society or a system in which I were to see a lot more of where my tax dollars were going, where the roads were always nice, the schools were nice, things weren't so corrupted and manipulative, they weren't trying to constantly dumb us down and fluoridate the water and fuck up GMOs in the food, I would have a better view of taxation. But it's really not how it seems to go. The bureaucracy seems to really, there's a lot of waste within the government. Man, I'm like shivering. It's fucking freezing. It's like 10 degrees and probably like 0 degrees with wind chill right now. It's fucking nuts. But anyway, that's how I see it. You know what? But the only problem with volunteerism is the military. The military would have to be completely voluntary, and I don't know exactly how well that would go down. Who's just gonna go fight, and how many people are you really gonna get that are just willing to go fight and die for the country? Like, sure, that maybe there's a lot of people out there who might be like, yeah, I would do that, I would fight and die for my country if need be. Sure, maybe in wartime, but it's always nice to just have like a standing present army at all times. And how are you gonna pay these guys without taxes and shit like that? Unless there were to be some sort of private donations from more wealthy individuals to pay some sort of military fund, So it would all have to be entirely private. And that's an interesting concept, because then, I guess if you were able to I think maybe in a smaller society than we have at the moment, if I were to just take the state of Michigan, and we needed, because I know Michigan has one of the largest militias in the entire country. So if we were to just take Michigan, for example, say for some random ass reason we were to secede from the Union, and we decided to do things entirely libertarian, entirely volunteerism, if we were to really implement that idea, we would just basically have a large, well-armed militia. Militias are voluntary, and considering we have a decently large one, that means there's at least a sizable portion of the population that is willing to raise arms and defend the nation, defend the borders, and shit like that. And honestly, if you're not engaging in any sort of foreign empiricism, if you're not actually going out and taking shit, then there's not much need for a huge offensive army. You could just really create a strong defensive army, which I think overall would actually cost a lot less. Defensive armies tend to cost less. Maybe if you're just putting all the donations and fortifications, armaments, and stockpiles, things would be a little easier, be a little cheaper. We'd have to really figure out the bureaucracy side too. So if you're limited on income, they would definitely probably focus more on using the money that they do happen to get for. They'd be more resourceful with the actual money they get, or monetary shit. They wouldn't be so inclined to just waste it all because it's not their money. Whatever, I guess it wouldn't be their money anyway. But they'd be a lot more limited in what they can do. Right now, I don't like the idea that over half of my tax dollars, every dollar I give, like 60 cents of it, goes straight into the military. Now, I'm joining the military. I've got like 25 days left until I'll be in the military, so this isn't an anti-military rant. But I don't like the bureaucracy that it's been injected into it. And they seem to just waste all sorts of shit. You see reports of them spending hundreds of dollars on toilets and buying the best shit. It's probably just all for the generals and higher ranks, of course, and for the military-industrial complex. I know we've got like a couple thousand tanks just sitting in parking lots, and we've got all sorts of planes just sitting around, rotting, rusting away essentially. We spend all this money on stupid shit that most of it goes to waste. We could probably cut like over $100,000 from our military budget just in waste alone, especially from the fucking Pentagon. If we stopped arming terrorists, that'd be a good start. We stopped arming terrorist states like Saudi Arabia, Israel. We should stop arming them. That'd be a big thing. We should stop giving them uranium too. There's no reason that Israel should have nukes. And they only do because we helped them with that. I'm not sure if we gave them the nukes or if we just gave them the technology to produce and make their own nukes. But I know Israel is not a resource-heavy country, so most of their supplies come from out of state, and they have to import pretty much everything. And they're pretty much a handout country, essentially. Same with Saudi Arabia. It's kind of fucked up, honestly. So that's the military side of it. Now the economic side of it, or the infrastructure side of it, you'd have to deal with the roads. You know, when you tell people, hey, taxation is theft. Oh, how are you going to pay for the roads? You hate schools, you hate children, you hate minorities. What's wrong with you, you racist bigot? You know, that's instantly what they start throwing at you. And it's like, well, I think really if we needed roads built and there wasn't going to be like a government system to build them, I think people would get together and build some roads, you know. It's not hard. You get some construction companies together. They'd probably want to get paid is the problem. So maybe the communities could have like a communal fund to help pay for. Well then I guess the communal fund is all voluntary, but you'd have to hope people continue to pay for it. Otherwise, your roads are going to go to shit. Especially in places like this, where the weather is so chaotic and random. The roads really got fucked up this year. So much freezing and thawing. Oh my god. The roads are just horrible now, and they take so long to actually get around to fucking fixing them. I would like to actually see a system implemented so where we can get examples of this, actually see if it actually fucking works, if people are actually willing to put forth an effort if no one else will. If there isn't a government system to tell them to do it. You know, I've lived my whole life under a government system, obviously. Everyone pretty much in the world has. No one's really been born into a free system, unless you're born in some tribal community or something, but that's not exactly free. A lot of times that they're always riddled with violence and corruption. But in terms of places like America, we consider ourselves civilized, but we're just slaves. We're just tax cattle, essentially. And, you know, I recently met a socialist who's all for taxation. I didn't really get to talk to him too much about it. I would have liked to just sit him down and just kind of like hear what he has to say and why he actually supports taxation. And I would have liked to see his response to me telling him taxation is theft. I didn't get a chance to do that. That would have been nice. I didn't get long to talk to him. But I would like to have a little debate with someone like that. That'd be an interesting talk. And I know... Who the fuck is this guy? Some Bitcoin guy and a couple others are actually looking around right now. They've got like a bunch of money. I don't know exactly. They've got millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. And they're trying to look for a country that they can buy land from. Probably in Europe or something, where they can set up their own pretty much libertarian country, which is actually a great idea. It'd be nice to actually be able to move to a place like that and help it get started. I'll have to look more into that. Maybe I'll make a separate video on that, because when I was originally heard it from the We Are Change guys, they had like a little report on it and did like an interview with the guy who's planning on doing it. If it actually goes through, from the way it sounded like they were pretty serious about it, and that it's actually going to be happening soon. I can't remember the fucking name of it, but I will look into that a bit more. Maybe like a whole nother video and continue with the topic, of course, because it is a rather interesting topic. I know I would personally do that. I think communities tend to work better within themselves, you know. When they're not attached to some giant branch of government, they tend to work better without having some sort of, interference, essentially, from big government telling them what to do, what they can't do. The people of a locality should be able to decide what they do. I think that's why the Roman Empire managed to last for so long. It was a giant authoritarian regime, essentially. It was just a big empire, and it had an emperor, and of course had what was it? It wasn't a parliament. What'd they call it? Fuck. The Senate. The Senate, that's what they had. Fuck. They did have a Senate, and I know at certain points in its history the Senate had more power than other points, and sometimes it was more of a military empire and whatnot. It changed all the time. But my point is that all across the empire, it was based on basically local rule. It was basically the localities would essentially rule themselves, because the word of law would take months and months to reach separate sides of the empire. If an emperor wanted to make a decree, it would take months for it to reach the furthest point of the empire. Say if in Rome he wanted to raise taxes or something, it would take months for the word that taxes were going to be raised to reach places like the Middle East or Northern Africa or up in Scotland and whatnot. I guess they didn't take Scotland, but you know what I'm saying, up in England. That area, the UK, lower UK area. So basically they were ruling themselves in these localities, and I think that allowed it to be a lot more flexible to the winds of change, to the winds of chaos, because the winds of chaos are not exactly gentle to societal structures that tend to be a lot more rigid and authoritarian and centralized. Essentially, central systems just don't seem to last long. Look at the U.S. The more centralized it gets, the more destabilized it's becoming. You know, look at us right now. Look at Europe. Europe's a great example, especially with Germany. Just the collapse of their culture, collapse of everything that they've got there. So, I think liberty tends to really win in the end against all these things. I think the powers that do control the central governments are just kind of hoping that technology increases fast enough to where they can kind of slip everyone into like some sort of mind coma, some sort of waking sleep where no one really knows what's going on. They want to control all information. They want to control everything, basically, all the agriculture, all the medicines, everything, infrastructure, military. They want it all to be centralized, all the money. They want every transaction to be monitored. They want it all to be taxed. They want everything to be under their control. And maybe once you get to that system, it might last. It might last once you get to that dystopic future of, like, 1984 style. I think the basic overhaul of that book was just to say you get to a certain point of dystopia where you can't really stop it after a certain point. We're definitely not at that point yet, but if we give the powers that be is another 50 years of top-down control, there's a chance that could actually happen. I don't think that will happen. From the way things are looking, chaos is seeming to win out and poke holes in their beautiful little sandcastle that they've made. So we'll just have to fucking see. I would like, but on that little libertarian country I'm talking about, that would really be something. So I'll definitely make another video on that. Anyway, I just really wanted to talk a bit more about that topic, because I said something last time, and as I was going through it said something like liberty is a lot more malleable than centralization. It's a lot less rigid, more flexible. I think that really, really stands true. So we'll just have to see what the fuck happens. Anyway, that's all for now. Peace.